Ultamize. Some of the most boring conversations you'll ever have are with very smart people. That sounds harsh, but it's true. And if you're someone who is thoughtful, analytical, or detail oriented, there's a good chance this applies to you sometimes too. Here's why: smart people are trained to be complete, to be precise, to be accurate, to cover all the angles. And that's a huge advantage in most areas of life. It's great in some writing, analysis, problem solving, presentations, strategy, but in conversation, it often backfires because conversation doesn't reward completeness, it rewards engagement. Let me show you what this looks like. You ask someone a simple question: what do you think about that? And a highly analytical person might say, well, it depends. There are a few different factors to consider. First, you have to look at the context, and then there's the timing, and then there's the impact. And also, when they keep going on and on and on, they're not wrong. They might be showing a lot of intellect. They're actually being thoughtful in their own mind. But the longer they talk, the more they lose people because they're trying to give the full answer when the situation only calls for a useful, interesting answer. Now, compare that to someone who says, I think it's probably a good idea, but it depends on timing. What do you think? Short, clear, engaging, same intelligence, different delivery. And you're more likely to ask a follow up question. Here's another very common example. You ask someone, how did you get into your field? A smart, detail oriented person might say, well, I originally studied something completely different, and then I took this internship. That led to another opportunity. And then over time, I realized, and now you're in a full career narrative. Compare that to, I kind of fell into it by accident and ended up being a really good fit. What about you? If someone asks me, how did I get into my field? I say, well, I won a Fonzie lookalike contest in junior high school and got to do the junior high school newscast the next day. What about you? Now, that makes them want to ask me questions and what happened. But it's short, it's brief, it keeps the conversation flowing. So remember, ask, what about you, pretty quickly. Now the conversation moves. Now it flows. Now it feels easy. Here's what's really happening: smart people are afraid of being misunderstood. So they add context, they add clarification, they add detail. They try to make everything precise. They want you quite often to perceive them as smart because maybe they're a little insecure. So they go overboard. But the unintended result is they overload the listener. And once the listener feels overloaded, they check out. Let me give you a moment you've probably experienced. You're listening to someone explain something, and about 20 or 30 seconds in, you think, I get it. But they keep going. They explain the same thing 3 different ways. They add more detail. They keep talking. And now, instead of appreciating their clarity, you're just waiting for them to hurry up, hurry up. That's rambling. And it often comes from intelligence, not lack of it. Now, here's the shift I want you to make. Instead of asking, how can I explain this completely? Ask, what's the simplest version of this? Or even better, what's the one sentence version? Let me give you a practical way to apply this. The next time someone asks you a question, before you answer, think one sentence, not 5, not a paragraph, one. Then stop. See if they want more. They'll ask. If they don't, you've kept the conversation clean and engaging. Let me be clear. I'm not telling you to act tight-lipped and make someone feel like they have to interrogate you to get anything out of you, but I want you to at least start briefly, see if they ask questions. Here's another key point. When you simplify your answers, you don't sound less intelligent. You sound clear, more confident, more in control because you're not trying to prove anything. You're just communicating. And that's what people respond to. Now, here's the big takeaway: your intelligence is not the problem. Your habits around how you express it might be. And once you shift those habits, you don't lose your depth. You just deliver it in a way that people can actually absorb.